Welcome to Mindful Monday, where we explore life's challenges. Hi, today's April 27th, 2020. I hope that you're being well and I'm finding you in good health. So, this morning, today, I want to talk to you about what's going on as we're social distancing. It's going on across the globe, but it's certainly happening right here in San Diego. And from all indications, it's going to be continuing on at least for a couple more weeks, maybe longer, and we don't know. And a lot comes with this as we move through this. We're encouraged to go out in public wearing a mask, and when we encounter other people, to make sure that we're wearing masks and keeping some sort of a distance between ourselves. But much of the community is withdrawing into our homes, but others are having to go to work and provide for each other, including first responders and public safety workers. So in this time that we're going to be spending together, we're going to be talking about the confusion, the uncertainty, and some of the other things that start showing up around work and school and relationships, and are what's showing up as we start to withdraw from people. And it might be bringing up worries and concerns. So we're going to learn a new skill, maybe, see how that works out. And a skill that you can take forward with you and use throughout the day when moments of upset show up. We've been adding to these throughout our time and posting them on the YouTube channel here. And so I invite you that if you find these skills and talks to be useful, to hit the subscribe button down below, and then also hit the ring bell. That way you'll receive notifications whenever new posts are placed onto the channel. So when holding your breath is safer than breathing, when letting go is braver than keeping, when innocent words turn to lies, and you can't hide by closing your eyes. That's the opening stanza to a song by Sarah Bareilles from about a year ago. Not knowing, not anticipating that here we would be in a state of a pandemic where we're being told not to breathe around people, and just breathing itself might bring up some sense of anxiousness or worry or something like that. So what do we do in these moments? I've noticed that many times as I've been going out for walks in the community, keeping a safe social distance, and I notice that many people don't want to make eye contact, whether it's just walking down the sidewalk or wherever it is. They'll avert their gaze, and that starts to do something. It starts to send a signal of sensing of not safe and of some level of a fear. We're not going to catch anything by looking at each other, but we can certainly do things that can help us feel safer. And a lot of that's what happens when we break those gazes, break our interactions, is we start to feel disconnected. And humans are wired to be connected. It's the way we are. We're social beings. We form our pair groups, our love relationships, family groups, community groups, work groups. We've got our clubs that we join, our sports teams that we support. We have all sorts of groups that we form. And then we live in communities. We live in towns and cities and counties, and states and provinces and nations. We have all these different ways of forming our connected groups. And right now, on some level, many of us, most of us around the globe, are going through something similar as far as social distancing, withdrawing, and whatever comes with that. There's not only might we feel disconnected, but we can also start to feel that we're not in this alone, that others are disconnecting also with us. So there's a sense of connection with that, as odd as that might seem. They actually draw in a paradox. So I want to share with you just a simple little graphic that when we sense safe, things are going pretty well. And how do we know when we're safe? It'll show up in the body somehow. There'll be a sense of calm or at peace or some other aspect. We'll sense somewhere within us that we are feeling safe. But then things might get challenging. Something's happening, something's changing in our world, and there might be a little bit of a challenge. And the challenges are the places where we start to grow, where we start to stretch. We experience new things. Novelty starts coming in. But sometimes overwhelm shows up, and it's the overwhelm that can really be problematic for us. And when we're noticing that we're overwhelmed, what do we do with that? We can certainly freeze and collapse. We can get in fights. We can feel like we want to run, but there's no place to run to. So being able to notice what overwhelm is like and what's useful to soothe the overwhelm, to draw ourselves back in toward feeling into a challenging state or back into a safe state. So I'm hopeful that that graphic is useful for you to just kind of glance at and to notice that we do have the ability to notice that we got these various states going on within us, and we can do something with it. And oftentimes, this isn't just now, it's through many aspects of our life. We say, I just want to get back to normal. We might experience some other sort of illness or a loss, or a death, some tragedy, some other challenge. And we have a wanting and a desire to return to normal. And one of the things that I frequently will remind people of is that what is normal? And I like to say that normal is nothing but a dryer setting. You know, we hear about statistically things can be normal. There's the norm of the mean and all this other stuff around statistics. But actually for each of us, our normal is normal for us. It may not be normal for someone else. And what comes with that when normal goes away? And in essence, normal is just, it's our habits, it's our routines, it's our typical way of life that brings us comfort and joy and sense of connection and all of these things. So when normal goes away, it starts to potentially create some uncertainty. And so what comes with uncertainty? We have the ability to lean into uncertainty and notice that it might even bring up a little bit of a fear or a concern. So what do we do when we're faced with that? It brings to mind that in the Stoic philosophies, the Stoics, hundreds of years ago, in fact, probably almost 2,000 years ago, they came up with an idea called the dichotomy of control. And in essence, if it's not within our power, then what good is worrying about it? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, if it is within our power, what good is worrying about it? So, in other words, what the Stoics are saying, that if we can't do anything about it, don't worry about it because it's going to happen anyway. And if you can do something about it, then do something about it and quit worrying about it. Act on it, move into it, and take care of it. And sometimes that might feel a little bit harsh, but what shows up with that then starts to be a sense of balance, equanimity, a place in the middle that, whatever shows up is hard, but I can do something with this. It's challenging. Yeah, I like the challenge. Well, maybe we don't like the challenge, but maybe it's the challenge isn't quite overwhelming. If it's overwhelming, that's going to be a little bit different. And what comes with these moments then is a mystery of what's coming next, a mystery of what's here right now. Yeah. So one of the challenges that we have is that we'll bounce into the past. Well, can we do anything about the past? No, we can't. It's already happened. But we can use the past to inform us on how to move in through this current moment. Or we'll be concerned with what's coming next in an hour from now, in a day from now, in a week from now, in 10 years from now. The further out we go out away from this moment, the more opportunity there's for us to worry about it, about something that we have no control over. We have influence and control over what's here now, but not what's coming in our direction. especially as it really moves out away from us, getting into the days and the weeks and the months and the years ahead. So noticing that we can't control the future and we can't control the past. The past has already happened and the future's yet to be unfolded for us. And sometimes it might even be helpful to check in with another perspective on something like this, and it's the serenity prayer. Many of us may have heard it in one form or another. Uh, and it goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So, one of the things that the serenity prayer is inviting us to do then is it's actually to engage with our ability to be courageous and with our wisdom, whatever our wisdom is. And how do we know what our wisdom is? Well, got to be wise. It might be with all the gray hairs that we'll all ultimately get. Might take time, it takes age, but it always doesn't take a lot of age. It takes experience and paying attention. But the courage, oftentimes people describe courage as a form of bravery, but the word itself, going all the way back into its roots, kur, meaning heart, it's strength of heart. Having strength of heart to be with whatever's here. That I'm going to pick and choose. Do I have control over this? Well, that requires courage even to look at it, much less to make the choice on knowing what we do have choice over and then what we can do about it. And as I think about this, I pondered I recall that in the 1994 version of the Lion King movie, Rafiki's teaching Simba about change and what happens when pain shows up in the past. He's spending quite a bit of time with him, exposing Simba to a little bit of his past around his dad, and his dad's being dead and not available for him. And in a brief moment, Rafiki bonks Simba over the head with his stick. And Simba complains, and Rafiki sums it up by reminding Simba not to worry about it because it's in the past already. And Simba observes that sometimes the past hurts. Rafiki simply replies, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. So in a movie and a cartoon that probably many of us, most of us, have probably seen at some point in our life, even the newer versions of it, being able to notice and identify that, yeah, the past does hurt sometimes when we think about it. The hurt shows up now when we recall it. Can we use that to learn from it and to move forward? To do that is really where our wisdom develops, is being able to notice when overwhelm's not here, that we can nudge into challenging. It's challenging to think about things that aren't here anymore. When normal's gone, when our way of life has changed drastically, out of our control, we can turn toward these things with a stance of courage and tap into our wisdom and then learn from it so that we can figure out what do we want to do next. So this then, I'm going to share something else with us here. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That's a quote by Viktor Frankl. He's the author of Man's Search for Meaning, spent much of his life's work around what it means to be human and what humans need to exist. And he formulated a lot of his view on it while he was a young man in concentration camps during World War II. He lost most of his family, and he was able to move through that, formulating a sense of meaning. So from that then is, well, how do we find that space? How do we make it? When we're noticing a sense of being frustrated with the kids at home or with each other, our loved ones, or our bosses or just the community or seeing the news, but we're noticing that some upset's showing up, whether it's anxiousness or anger or frustrations. It really doesn't matter. The stimulus, the thing that's coming in and prompting something in us to sense the upset, sometimes can nudge us toward overwhelm. And one of the ways not to move into overwhelm is using an analogy of stop. And I like to equate it like rolling up to a stop sign. Many of us drive or have driven, or we've ridden in vehicles that have been navigating around the roads. And what happens when we come up to a stop sign, or what's supposed to happen? I like to frame that because so often many people don't stop. They go right past the limit line. And I have a friend that just recently got bumped into by another car because the other car didn't stop when they were supposed to. But when we come up to the limit line at the stop sign, if we do what the sign suggests, we can use the acronym. The S of stop simply means stop. And then the T of stop is to take a breath. And I like to suggest that it's a simple cleansing breath. And that taking of a breath with awareness allows us to settle the body into what's here right now. Maybe the heart's pounding, maybe the muscles are tense, maybe there's some emotions going on, maybe some thoughts are reeling within us. So we can take that breath, and it's given that space that between the stimulus and our response, so that we don't fly into being reactive to whatever showed up. We can say, okay, what do I want to do? But to get to that, the O of stop is just like at the stop sign. Is it enough to roll up to the limit line and stop and then go, or do you need to do something else? And I'll suggest that most people, when I ask them individually or even in a group, they go, well, you got to look. You got to look around, see what's happening. Is it safe to go? Is there anybody else coming? Those sort of things. So the O of stop is observe. But because we're talking about our experiences that might be inside or something going on around us, we take that breath and then we go, oh, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? What's it telling me? And we can start to ask ourselves some questions about what's going on around our experience. Maybe there's a thought that's coming up. Maybe if it's in a relationship, it might be something like, you don't care about me, you don't love me, or something like that. Well, that's a thought. But with that will come an emotion and a body sensation. We can pause and we can sense it. Then we can also look around and say, okay, what's going on around me? What's happening now that's prompting this? It gives us a chance to evaluate and test what's happening. We go, oh, wow, how about that? There's a thought here. Do you need to believe that thought? Is it true? If you ask yourself, okay, this is my thought, is it true? You can ask the second question, is it absolutely true? How do I know if it's true? You can look at it a little bit more. You might say, well, it's mostly true, but maybe there's a little bit of not true to it. Regardless of what the answer is that you come up with, then noticing what shows up in the body as you come up with these answers. Is it true? Is there an ease or a release or a sense of calm, or is there more tension that comes up if you decide and you investigate that the thought is true? Then you start to find out that these sensations in the body are familiar. They've been here before. Is it something that you need to act on now? Are you safe? And chances are, if you're not going to die or somebody else around you is not in extreme danger of being hurt and injured physically, safety is present. It's like, this is challenging. Okay, well, it's challenging. All right, what do I do with challenging? Check into how it's worked for you before and what's worked for you and what hasn't worked for you. There's a lot of investigating that can go on in these brief moments. Our brains think pretty quickly. We notice it all. We do the investigation, and then we get to the P of stop. A P word for go, and it's proceed. So you go ahead and make a choice, finding that freedom within that space, and you make a choice and go for it. And then you wait for it. And, so how does that work out for you? And then you move on and you figure it out. And if it didn't work out too well, well, now it's in the past. You can't do anything about that choice, but you can use it to learn from for the next time, if there is a next time. So, hopeful that this sort of an exercise can be useful for you. Stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. So, I'd like to wrap up for today with a poem from the 13th century. In essence, it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably, for they may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, keep them at the door laughing and invite them in. Being grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. May you be well, may you be safe, and until next time.